Now I am convinced that all the shocks that people experience in the world today are the result of disbelief in the afterlife. I decided to keep my posthumous diary to tell about the survival of my consciousness after death. Perhaps this description will encourage someone living today to rethink their materialistic philosophy of life. This is the goal of the British archaeologist, traveler, military man Thomas Lawrence, whose life was suddenly cut short in 1935. Beginning in 1938, Thomas Lawrence began to transmit information using automatic writing about how his transition to another world took place, and what trials awaited him on the other side. Thomas Lawrence was a fan of fast motorcycle riding. This is what destroyed him. On May 13, 1935, Lawrence got on his motorcycle and went for a ride. On his way he met cyclists. While going around them, Lawrence fell on the road. Doctors tried to save him, but to no avail. Lawrence died on May 19. Three years after his death, Thomas Lawrence began to transmit his messages from another world through Jane Sherwood, who had the ability of automatic writing. These notes were later published under the title, The Posthumous Diary of Thomas Lawrence. At the beginning of his diary, Lawrence described his first feelings after falling on the road. I remember a crushing blow, after which there was emptiness. I cannot say how long I spent in this emptiness, until in it a point of my consciousness appeared, which gradually expanded. I saw neither darkness nor light. Around was an endless grayness, in which my anxiety grew, Thomas Lawrence said. He woke up in a formless world in which, it seemed, he was the only inhabitant. He heard muffled voices and saw rare shadows. Lawrence tried to call for help, but received no answer. Then he felt like he fell asleep. In his dream, Thomas Lawrence saw boys on bicycles, a road, his house. From this point, all the events of his life unfolded before him. The viewing stopped at the unconscious state of the baby. At that moment, the thought flashed through Thomas Lawrence's mind that this was really the end. Everything around him went dark again. Lawrence's consciousness faded. I can't say how much time passed after this break. I came to my senses again and was surprised that my existence continued. Around me was a desert, shrouded in gloomy November twilight. It is difficult to guess how long I had been here. Weeks? Months? The familiar world had disappeared from me, and everything around seemed like a nightmare. I waited for it to awaken me, but instead the conviction grew within me that I was dead. I used to think that death would put an end to everything. Better to fade away forever, Lawrence thought. After a while the fog cleared a little, and Lawrence began to make out the vague outlines of houses, trees, and hedges. Lawrence thought he saw a city and wanted to go towards it. While thinking about the city, he found himself quickly approaching its outskirts. Thus Lawrence received the first indication that thought affects movement in that world. In the fog, Thomas Lawrence saw the figure of a man who called himself Mitchell. Mitchell said that he was working with new inhabitants of the spiritual world, and then explained to Lawrence, "You must have been in a terrible mood before you got here. That explains why you woke up in this part of the world. I would like to help you." Mitchell promised Lawrence to take him to a better place. And while they were walking, he explained to Thomas that his body was now made not of matter, but of emotion. Therefore, all joys, like all sorrows, are felt more acutely here. Lawrence learned that the new world held his attention only for what he could see in it. Soon the travelers found themselves at a building where Lawrence was given a room full of beautiful flowers and light. Mitchell explained that Lawrence found himself in a place somewhat similar to an earthly sanatorium. Over time, I learned to feel happy here. But first I had to endure the suffering of those people whom I had harmed. Most of all, I was tormented by an incident during the war years, when I caused the death of one person. Now I had to endure everything I had done to him. At that moment, it seemed to me that I could not bear it. But now I feel that my pain is gradually diminishing, Thomas Lawrence reported. Transmitting his messages, he said that he still had other misfortunes to suffer. Mitchell told Lawrence that he should find a task for himself in the new world that would contribute to his purification and salvation at this difficult stage. Lawrence decided to help new souls who found themselves in the same position after death as he was. However, he soon became convinced that it was not possible to help all souls. In addition to helping the new inhabitants of another world, Thomas Lawrence began traveling and searching for those he knew in earthly life. According to him, he is still going through a kind of purification from the stains of earthly experience. Thomas Lawrence is aware that when this purification is completed, he will leave the sphere in which he now resides. But what his more essential role in the new sphere will be, Lawrence does not know. Even now my earthly life feels like a distant, unreal and simply bad dream. Day and night, cold and heat, constant hunger and thirst, all this has disappeared now. There is no longer a struggle for existence. I am no longer afraid of death, because it does not exist. This fear should be cast aside by people living on earth. They should know that in the other world we can only consolidate what we have achieved in earthly life. Here we simply consolidate our earthly achievements, but we can add nothing more to our growth, reported Thomas Lawrence.